Big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video. More about Surfshark and their outstanding privacy services later. In about a month or so, you're going to be seeing a lot of angry people online. Countless YouTube channels, magazines, and websites are going to be making their end of the decade top 10, top 50, and top whatever lists. Everybody's going to argue in the comments. Maybe it'll be fun, maybe it'll be the worst. Who knows? But before we get there, I just want to ease us into that inevitable span of a few weeks where everybody's mad with a much more casual end of the decade list. In this video, I'm going to talk about 8 albums that I love from the 2010s. They might not be the best albums from this decade, and they might not even be my absolute favorite albums from this decade. I just want to do an unranked, uncompetitive list of really cool projects that I think are must-listens. It'll be a solid mix when it comes to levels of popularity. Some of them have a chance of making the actual best of the decade ranked lists, and some of them you probably haven't even heard of before. I tried to have a decent mix of styles and vibes, so hopefully everybody can enjoy a few albums from this list. Without further ado, let's do this. First up, we're going to talk about 2014's Cilvia demo by Isaiah Rashad. With all the great projects that TDE have produced over the years, it's probably easy for a lot of people to forget this debut EP from one of the least popular members of the group, and I think that's pretty tragic considering how great this thing is. Isaiah has discussed how this project is sort of a concept album. It focuses on his youth and adolescence without ever really conforming to one ultra-specific narrative. Throughout the 14 tracks, we get themes of police brutality, family, death, substance abuse, and obviously growing up, too. I think the juxtaposition between Isaiah's rapping and the production is a super fascinating point on this EP. His delivery and his flows can be so abrasive and hard-hitting, but the production is relatively mellow from start to finish. Instead of the usual trap beats that we've been so saturated with this decade, we get these hazy, dreamlike soundscapes. They combine aesthetics from Western and Southern hip-hop really well, and it makes for a smooth, soulful listening experience. This whole project feels really nostalgic, and I think that adds to the replay value of it all. With so many hip-hop albums coming and going over the years, this one has always stayed with me. It's introspective without ever being full of itself. It can be relaxing, but it can also hit you deep within your emotions. There's a 3-track span in the middle of the EP that is unreal. R.I.P. Kevin Miller shows the versatility of Isaiah as we get a really catchy hook and then some cutting, nostalgic bars as he reminisces on his childhood. Ronnie Drake is probably my favorite track on Cilvia demo. It's a great representation of the project as a whole, and Isaiah takes his time here. He wants you to really hear him out, and every line is worth thinking about.
Feeling us, gotta look real and tough, gotta keep your hands in the cart, no you still in stuff.
And finally, West to Savannah is one of the smoothest, easiest on the ears songs I've heard in the 2010s.
Now can we fall in love with Southern playlist banging through the night?
Next up, we've got an album that I've mentioned on the channel a couple of times now, and that is 2016's Onion by Ceglie. It's probably the least well-known out of all of these, so I'm really just trying to hammer home to everybody how incredible this thing is. You really need to check it out. Onion is a brilliant blend of jazz and pop. Throughout its 49-minute runtime, there are so many twists and turns, and I find something new that I love about the album every time I listen to it. Chase has a truly special ability when it comes to creating totally different types of songs. On Onion, the influences are so varied and unique that, honestly, there's a little bit of something for everybody. On this album, we hear everything from distorted, almost eerie love songs that remind you of somebody like James Blake. Then, a few tracks later, you'll get a cute sing-along track that seems like an old-school TV show theme song, and then a sensual, jazzy tune that is just oozing with charisma and confidence. All I Want Is You is probably my favorite cut on the album. It's a sweet little love song that feels so genuine and authentic. Thank God I Found You is a genius cover of an old Mariah Carey song. Chase's distorted vocals and the slow, near creepy percussion give the track an entirely new meaning when compared to the original.
Baby, I'm so thankful I found
And then Giuliana is just so fun, so cool, so catchy. I am obsessed with it. Next up, we've got 2015's Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen. In my eyes, this is a perfect pop album. It's everything pop music should be, and if the human species dies out and aliens come down to Earth, I hope this is what's left of us. While I also love 2019's Dedicated, I've built so many memories with Emotion, and at least for the time being, this is the one that I treasure so much. This is a prime example of why you shouldn't be one of those internet contrarians that dismisses anything that sounds too mainstream. If you're one of those people, you'll be missing out on some of the most anthemic, invigorating songs I've ever heard. Everything here is so well written, so well produced, and speaking of that, this album has some of the sharpest, most finely tuned instrumentals of any pop album I've ever heard. There are a ton of great producers on here, like Rostam from Vampire Weekend and Dev Hynes aka Blood Orange, and it is so clear how much work went into this thing. Coming off the success of Call Me Maybe, Emotion was such a big leap for Carly when we're talking about maturity and growth in regards to the instrumentals. A lot of the tracks on her previous record were a little bland, but pretty much the entire track list of Emotion is lush and colorful and exciting. And when we're not talking about the bigger, more stadium-ready pop anthems, the softer ballads work really well here too. Runaway With Me is one of the best opening tracks that I've ever heard. A perfect 10 out of 10 incredible pop song that I scream the lyrics to in my car at least once a month or so. Your Type is a brilliant sort of comeback type of song. When you get knocked down so many times in a row, this is the song that's playing when you get back on your feet. I'm not the type of girl for you. I'm not going to pretend. And the title track Emotion is bursting with expression and feeling. It's a definitive, necessary part of this album, and I highly recommend it. In your fantasy, dream about me. Next is a very different album than Emotion, and that's 2011's XXX by Danny Brown. This was the first album that I heard from Danny, and it's probably in my top 25 favorite projects ever. For those who haven't really given Danny a try, it might be a challenging experience at first. His voice is absolutely insane, his lyrics are often harsh and explicit, and the beats on this thing are not what you'll hear on the average rap album. With that being said, I really hope you do give him a try because this album is so entertaining. There's a level of trashiness that is so intriguing with this album, and I mean that in the best way possible. Danny brings you into his world with grimy production, lyrics in the opening verse of the album that compare to Squidward playing his clarinet, and in general, there's a certain aura about XXX that demands you to pay attention, even when the content is obscene. And if we're talking about the content of this project, it has a wider range of light and dark than most of the albums that I've ever heard before. Throughout its runtime, Danny hits us with so many of his signature, quirky, funny, and all-around strange one-liners. This is anti-clean rap, where the green at, risks I'd take, you'd swear I had the balls the size of beanbags. You're hiding something like a toupee. Truthfully, my friend, touche. You're softer than Flanders' sun. Don't make me put hands on, son. And I could give enough examples that would fill up the rest of this video, but the amazing thing about this album is that it can go in the complete opposite direction. On songs like Scrap or Die, Pac Blood, and Die Like a Rock Star, Danny talks about some truly dark topics. He's a funny, wild, crazy guy, and it's fun to watch him talk about how he gets so many girls that you'd swear it was 1985 and Teen Wolf just dropped and my name was Michael J. Fox. But he can also be an introspective, deep, thoughtful rapper too. Monopoly is my favorite track on the album, and one of my favorite songs ever. The sample and the instrumental work really well together, and Danny absolutely bodies this song. I miss shoes with issues and pistols, my race I like bistro, heart of egg. I Will is another favorite of mine, but I'm seriously not even gonna play a snippet because it's one of the raunchiest songs ever. Playing a millisecond of it will get this video demonetized in a heartbeat. And then Outer Space has one of the strangest, most off-kilter beats on the album, and Danny's flow is wild.
No clue like toy stores without board games, but when I paint pictures, I'm dipping brushes in war paint.
And for an album that couldn't be any more different than XXX, I want to talk about 2012's Life is People by Bill Fay. This guy has one of the most riveting stories that I've ever heard, and I want to make sure that everybody watching knows about him. To make a long story short, in the early 70s, Bill Fay was one of those guys that started a career in music, but it didn't end up working out. He got signed and put out a few albums, but then he got released by his label. Music wasn't paying the bills anymore, so he went back to everyday life. He got a normal job and lived like a normal person for decades. But then as time went on, people started discovering Bill's old music, and he built up a pretty big cult following. This cult following grew even larger when some big musicians started covering his music during their concerts. Bands like Wilco and guys like Kevin Morby were playing Bill's music, and meanwhile, like I said, Bill was not a rock star or anything like that. He had been living a normal life for 20 or 30 years. So with all these new fans in mind, in 2012, Bill released his first album of new material since the 70s, and I think that story is absolutely insane. On Life is People, you can hear from a man with a perspective on life like no other. I've never heard something so uniquely wise before. Within each and every song, you can feel the presence of his one-of-a-kind story, and it will make you feel every emotion under the sun. There are some religious aspects to this album, and usually I'm not overly interested in that kind of thing, but I'm completely into it on Life is People. If I want to hear about spirituality and faith from anyone, Bill Fay is a wonderful candidate. My go-to song on this thing is a cover of Wilco's Jesus Etc., and the fact that this song exists makes my heart so happy. Wilco helped bring Bill Fay back to music by covering some of his songs, so in a way, Bill is saying thank you on this cover of Wilco's big hit.
Each one is a setting sun.
Never Ending Happening is definitely a high point on the album too. Really great storytelling here.
The never ending happening.
And then Be at Peace with Yourself is a profound look at life itself. If you ever want to sit back and have an existential crisis, check this song out.
So be at peace with yourself.
Next up, we have another album that I've talked about on the channel a couple of times, and that is 2018's Florida Guilt by Bay Faction. In such a short amount of time, this thing has skyrocketed up the list of my favorite albums ever. This is an alternative, kind of poppy, kind of emo blend of soft rock that I've been replaying over and over again for about a year now. The album is a sharp 9 tracks and 23 minutes in length, and not a second is wasted on this project. On Florida Guilt, we get so many memorable songs that all toe the line between chill and energetic really well. There's nothing that is flashy or obnoxious, but it's never boring either. The band has a really relaxing sound, but it's also fun and danceable too. The lead singer, James, has a hypnotic, charming delivery that you're gonna fall in love with. It's the perfect amount of moody and a little bit shy, and then out of nowhere, he'll start hitting you with some powerful choruses that you can't help but sing along to. While I find myself picking a new favorite song every time I listen to this thing, here are a few of my current favorites. One Thrill is always up there for being a possible favorite, and it might be the best example of the relaxing yet energetic feeling that I was talking about.
I know there's only one thrill, everybody swears.
The title track Florida Guilt is one of the slower cuts on the album, and it features one of my favorite lines across the entire project.
Just when I feel permanent, skinny, cute, and comfortable.
And then Soppping is the song that I find myself going back to all the time. It's a vulnerable, super meaningful look into James's life, and I can't get enough of it.
How to keep a man asking for a friend.
Nearing the end of the list, let's talk about 2019's Nothing Great About Britain by Slowthai. This is one of the most exciting albums of this year, and I am so happy for this guy. He's been blowing up in a big way lately, and he deserves all the success. He had the release of this album, and then there were a couple of incredible collaborations with Flume and Brockhampton. Nothing Great About Britain is a masterclass when it comes to political commentary. On this record, he discusses economic woes in the UK, redistribution of wealth, nationalism, Brexit, and so on. This young, exhilarating rapper has something to say, and he's not afraid to speak his mind. Through an amusing blend of jokes and serious criticism, Slowthai explains the album's title in a very descriptive way. In every sense of the word, he is a renegade. He's not taking any prisoners throughout this album, he's going on a rampage. His energy is second to none, and if you're not hyped up by the end of its runtime, I think we're listening to two different albums. But like with most of the projects that I've discussed so far, Slowthai has range. He's able to channel all that anger into songs that are super personal, like on Northampton's Child, and it ends up being a pretty beautiful moment on the album. Inglorious is a captivating example of what grime is all about. The Skepta feature is cool, but Slowthai is on top form here.
And even when I die, I come back twice as legendary. Tears when I sit in the cemetery.
The title track Nothing Great About Britain is an action-packed, funny dissection of what an introduction should be. It's 3 minutes of Slowthai talking trash and preparing you for what's to come.
Chasing the dragon, you look like death warmed up. She in a splash just a coma.
And like I said, you've gotta mention Northampton's Child. It's a really transparent look at Slowthai's upbringing, and it's what made me fall in love with the album as a whole.
Like a movie scene, took mom to dazzling heights, where she deserves to be.
And to cap off this list, I want to talk about 2018's Lush by Snail. When this came out, I saw some lukewarm reception to it, and I was in shock because I think this album is so good. When it comes to indie rock, I think this is top tier stuff. Within Lindsey Jordan's emotional delivery, we're put into her shoes and we get such a strong sense of exactly what these songs mean to her. For every emo, heartbreaking moment on this album, we feel that pain. Her words are so sincere and her voice is so moving that there are a few songs on here that can bring a tear to my eye. And just to address the title of the album, yes, these songs are lush. While a lo-fi aesthetic is very common in the indie rock community, that's not what we get here. Every pluck of a guitar string sounds rich, and overall, the production is more than solid. Lindsey's voice is unique and powerful, and I'm glad that I can hear her perfectly clear, because on her previous release, the production definitely wasn't what it is on Lush. There's a bit of a raspy nature to her voice. On a few tracks, she's belting so hard that she's almost yodeling, and yeah, Lindsey has one of my favorite voices in all of music. Conceptually, this album reminds me a little bit of how I talked about Cilvia demo from earlier. There's not an ultra-specific narrative, but the album wears its themes on its sleeves. We've got youth, love, and heartbreak, and eventually the ideas of growing up and moving on are certainly clear. Pristine is the big standout single on the record, emo and anthemic to its core. The chorus on Stick makes me go crazy every single time. Lindsey really pushes her vocals to the limits on this one, and it's much appreciated. And finally, Anytime is a gorgeous way to close the album. It's almost like a sad, romantic little lullaby, and seeing this live is one of my favorite concert-going experiences ever. And before you go, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Surfshark, and the amazing deal that they're offering my viewers. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden to make sure that nobody can see what you do online. On top of that, they block ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, and unlike other VPN services, you can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. One awesome thing about this service is how you can protect yourself from targeted ads. Have you ever seen an ad or banner which made you feel like someone is reading reading your mind or listening to your conversations, that is how your online data is being used against you. If you use Surfshark, you can become resistant to that kind of targeted advertising. Another thing I love about Surfshark is access to my desired entertainment. If you can't find a TV series or movie on any streaming platform in your country despite paying the fee, try looking in other countries. There have been so many times recently when I wanted to watch a movie on Netflix, it wasn't available for me, I used Surfshark, and boom, I had it. With Surfshark, you can choose any country to stream from without being there, and it is amazing. So listen to this. Surfshark is offering my viewers an exclusive Black Friday deal, which is an 83% discount, as well as 3 additional months for free. That's an 83% discount and 3 additional months for free. Click on the link in the description or go to surfshark.deals/alpho and use my promo code ALPHO to sign up for 83% off and 3 additional months for free. Whether you're going to sign up for internet privacy reasons or if you want to binge watch something that's not available in your area, sign up for Surfshark with my code ALPHO today.